Philip MAZZEI was a friend of Thomas Jefferson. He greatly influenced him through his writings and thought. In addition, they collaborated on a business, a winemaking and Mediterranean fruit-type business in the Commonwealth of Virginia. The business collaboration didn't work, but their political collaboration was a big success. Philip MAZZEI was born in Italy. He was a son of a wealthy family. They were involved in the winemaking business. He had a falling out with his brothers in terms of due to the disagreement with how the business would be run. He became a medical doctor. He practiced in Italy. He also practiced in Turkey. From there, he went to England, became a mercantile, a import-export dealer. He met Benjamin Franklin, and through his contacts with Franklin, he became associated with Thomas Jefferson. He moved to to Virginia and became a neighbor, and they collaborated on this this business venture. And from there, he I'd just like Ted to describe what happened from there. Their meeting, their collaboration, and the importance of Mr. Philip MAZZEI in terms of Jefferson's thought and the country of the United States, how it was formulated. Ted?
Okay, yeah. Well, you've brought us, Jerry, up to the point where Filippo MAZZEI, or Philip MAZZEI as we know him, was introduced, came to America. He came to the, well, was then a colony, the colony of Virginia, in 1773, and he married in 1774. He was elected a vestryman of St. Anne's Parish to care for the poor, and he published articles in a famous book, newspaper called Pinckney's Virginia Gazette. Somewhere along the line, he met, well, actually what happened was he became a neighbor, next door neighbor of Thomas Jefferson. He bought property next to Jefferson in Albemarle County. They were neighbors. They got to know each other as neighbors, and they hit it off. They were on the same wavelength. They were both influenced by philosophes and the French and the Enlightenment, and they clicked. And they clicked the rest of their lives into correspondence of the two of them until MAZZEI died in 1816. And they got into a venture together to form a partnership, actually, he and Jefferson, to raise and make Mediterranean, Southern European products.
Grapes.
Wine, oil, different kinds of plants, and silk. The climate, however, in Virginia wasn't good for most of this stuff. I should say, incidentally, that Jefferson did try very hard to grow grapevines and wine in Monticello, too. They're both interested in that. So they had that common interest, and from there, things developed. They have common political interest. The American Revolution was boiling around.
Talking about influence, you just mentioned Monticello. That sounds Italian, doesn't it?
Yes. Well, Monticello means little hill. I should say...
Curious that he would use that name.
No, it's not curious for Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson was a cosmopolitan man. I have letters that he wrote to MAZZEI in perfect Italian. MAZZEI wrote to him in perfect English. These guys were multilingual. Jefferson, I'm sure, was multilingual. English, of course, French, and Italian. MAZZEI, the same thing. English, French, and Italian. Back and forth. So Jefferson was well acquainted with Italian culture, and he was a big proponent of Italian culture. And MAZZEI was Italian. He came from Florence, the font of culture and of Italian culture. It all clicked. Let's put it this way.
What were some of the ideas that Jefferson got from Philip MAZZEI? What were some of the ideas? Well,
the most important idea, and this has been cited by the U.S. Congress in 1984. It was previously mentioned in a book, Nation of Immigrants, by President John F. Kennedy, was the concept that Thomas Jefferson put into the Declaration of Independence that all men are created equal. 2 years before that, in one of these gazettes in Virginia, MAZZEI published an article in which he uses these terminologies, not exactly like Jefferson used, but in the same light. Men are equal. They're equal natural by natural law. They're equal in nature. The equality of all people, of all men. These ideas were put forth first, at least in print we know, by MAZZEI, and later incorporated by his close friend and collaborator Jefferson in the Declaration of Independence.
What other ways did he contribute to the revolutionary cause? What other tangible ways did he contribute?
Well, Philip MAZZEI became enamored of the American cause right away. He got right involved in the pre-revolutionary agitation and the pamphlets that they were putting out in Virginia. So he met all, or almost all, of the important people who became revolutionary leaders in Virginia and in other states, from George Washington right on down, Franklin, Jefferson, John Adams, and all of the important people in Virginia. He knew them. What he did was he actually, in 1775, he joined what they called the Independent Company of Militia in Albemarle County, where Jefferson he lived, and as a private, along with Jefferson, James Madison, and his brother. And they wanted to elect him lieutenant. He didn't want that. They marched to the coast, and then they disbanded. But this was his way of wanting to be part.
Didn't he also have something to do with getting arms imported?
Yes, he did. But
Europe?
later on in the American Revolution,
Italy?
He tried to join the army, but the governor of Virginia, Patrick Henry, said, "No, you're more important to us for your brains, rather than going just to be a common soldier." Around that time, in 1778, he was proposed by Jefferson as Virginia's agent in Europe. That's an official title, Virginia's agent in Europe. He signed an oath of allegiance to Virginia, April 21st, 1779, and he left as agent of Virginia in Europe. And the idea was to promote contacts with Virginia and the rest of the colonies, but most of Virginia, with European countries, to promote commerce between them and contacts. He was taken a prisoner by an English privateer on June 20, and he was held in confinement in New York City on his way to Europe. Then he somehow got released. He went to Italy in 1780 and then Paris in June of that year. And he was working as an agent for Virginia and de facto for the United States, and what became the United States throughout this period. 1782, he was in Florence. He went to Holland. He went to Amsterdam, all in his capacity as an agent. And then he went back to Brussels, which became later on Belgium, and then he went to Paris again, back and forth, back and forth. And eventually came back to Virginia after the Revolution and was cited for all his contributions and was paid by the state of Virginia for his service for doing such a good job. And so he did a lot.
Now, when he went back to Europe, didn't he have a publication that he published in France regarding his philosophy?
Yes. In 1778, he published in French a book, or actually it was a series of books, about the founding, the history of the American colonies, 13 colonies. It goes into each colony up through the pre-revolutionary period and the Revolution, explaining to European audiences, because he felt they misunderstood what was going on in America. And he wrote it in French, which was the universal language at the time, justifying the American Revolution, why it occurred, the economic reasons, and promoting the United States.
So he wasn't just promoting the United States, but he was in Poland too. He was actually working with King Stanislaus.
Well, later on,